What we talk about this time is really going to show whether you have real Jesus. We've been talking about real Jesus or fake Jesus. This beatitude really, cuts into it if you have the real Jesus. And so if you do not have real Jesus, you are not going to be able to do this one. I do not think how you're going to do this one. So we're looking at real Jesus. We're going through the Sermon on the Mount. This is the Beatitudes. I believe this is the third Beatitude, the fourth video. This one I think is probably one of the hardest ones to do, to live. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. This is very difficult, and this goes against the grain of everything that we know, which is natural, that the meek, the humble, inherit the earth. This has never been easy, because if you think about it, even when you go back in time, that back then might was right. There's no democracy. Might is right. So you conquer and you go in and you reign. What Jesus is speaking about is being humble. Meekness means humility. Now, this is not someone who's just easygoing. I've met many people that are easygoing, and they just got an easygoing temperament. They'll never really talk up. They kind of just go with the flow. They're like, yeah, whatever. But what you do is you find many times those people can be passive aggressive. So they won't say anything to you, but they just won't do it. And they're just as prideful as the big mouth. True humility is someone who just can take their eyes off themselves, that they can be focused on God and focused on others, that they've taken their eyes off themselves. So what this means is someone who is not super sensitive about themselves. And so you would leave a truly humble man, C.S. Lewis says, thinking, that was a nice person, that was a really nice woman or a nice man, they really allowed me to speak, they really was interested in me and seemed like they really wanted to learn about me. That's true humility. So real humility is about taking your eyes off yourself. A humble person is patient. That's one of the qualities of a humble person. A humble person is willing to listen. A humble person is willing to learn. One of the real qualities of a humble person is that they are teachable. And one of the traits of a prideful person is that they are unteachable. That's one of the things that you see straight away, where you can discern meekness and the absence of meekness. So it really makes sense when Jesus says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, because you can't even be a disciple without meekness, without humility. See, this is where we see the order of the Beatitudes kick in. Remember what we said, poor in spirit, that I'm emptied of self. Mourning. So I feel the weight of this. I'm grieved by this. This person is easy to be humble. So if you're struggling with pride, you probably have to go back to the second Beatitude, mourning. You haven't mourned over your condition yet. And probably you haven't mourned over your condition, maybe because, go back to the first Beatitude, is that you haven't come to the revelation of being poor in spirit. You haven't come to God in that way. So those that are poor in spirit, those that have mourned, they find it a lot easier to be humble. One of the problems with the church, and I'm sure it's always been a problem with every church of all times, is sometimes we're trying to disciple people that actually haven't come into contact with real Jesus. So they're not poor in spirit and they haven't mourned, so they won't listen. They're not teachable. They're not patient. Real Jesus promises us, and he says this, that if you're meek, you will inherit the earth. I've seen this play out so many times in my life. Somebody's done me something, or I don't feel it's fair what's actually happening to me. And something in me wants to, put on my game face, bring out that old brother. But Christ, the knowledge of Christ, the Spirit of Christ, by his grace, says be meek. Exercise meekness here. And what I've seen is that, yes, there are people that are prideful and self-promoting, and they seem to get their way in the short term, but they always fade. They always fade away. And what's left is those that were willing to be humble. And sometimes I've been the prideful person and God's pushed me to a side. And sometimes I've witnessed that with others. If you think of the most humble person who ever walked this planet, it has to be Jesus. I mean, he's God and he's washing people's feet. He's God and he's willing to wait for man. He's God and he goes on the cross. That alone there really teaches us that if we're going to follow the real Jesus, that we're going to need meekness. And then when Christ returned, the one that came as a lamb is coming back like a lion. Real Jesus is saying, this is not our time to reign. Just be meek. Wait, your turn is coming. Just stay humble. I'm going to fix this now. I'll make it turn out for your good. But in eternity, none of us will ever regret that we followed him and we remained meek. And so, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. I pray this edified you. Pray it was clear. Brought you closer to God. Remember, do your own legwork. Go into the Word. Read it. Pray over it. Share it. Do everything that we usually ask you to do. But remember, you must share this with somebody else. Text, call, witness. Share this. Whatever God's doing in your life, share it with somebody else. God bless.